Just how concerned should the Cowboys and the Dolphins be about the state of their offensive lines going into Week 16? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. On today's show, we're going to preview the Cowboys-Dolphins Week 16 matchup on Christmas Eve. We're going to talk about the state of the offensive lines, how to stop Tyreek Hill, and then at the end of the show, we'll give our predictions. But before we start, Landon, just want to give you a little bit of an update here. We need the Giants to beat the Eagles in Week 16 for the Cowboys to have a chance of winning the division. Tried to have some good luck yesterday. I ate some cutlets in honor of Tommy DeVito. Got to say, big fan of chicken cutlets. I don't know if there's a food I like better than chicken cutlets.
Well, it's not really fair that Tommy should like have ownership over chicken cutlets and that we can only eat chicken cutlets in support of him because that's too good a meal to like sacrifice to a middling New York quarterback.
Middling is very nice.
I'm being very kind, honestly. I think I'm being very kind to him. So yeah, I think that's fair that you did that, and I think that's great.
We're trying to get some good vibes here for our Giants friends. Come on, Patricia, we need your Giants to win this.
We need
weekend.
your help. We need your help, please. Thank you.
All right, let's talk about the offensive line for the Cowboys, and then we'll get to the Dolphins. So as of this recording, Mike McCarthy said Tyron Smith is a little bit behind Zach Martin right now in terms of being able to play. Tyron did not practice on Wednesday, did not practice on Thursday. The Cowboys, I don't believe, have a practice on Friday. Or they don't have a practice today. They have a walkthrough on Saturday. We'll see about Zach Martin, but how concerned are you about the Cowboys offensive line?
Well, I'm concerned if they're both out, and I don't really know how to read these particular tea leaves because it's complicated by the fact that Thursday was actually the Cowboys' last padded practice of the season. So maybe the thought process was that they didn't want to have these guys in padded practices either way. So it's kind of hard to get an idea of exactly, outside of the statement that McCarthy made that Tyron is a little bit behind Zach. We don't really have any kind of indication on whether either of them are going to play. So if both of them don't play, then yeah, I'd say that's pretty tough to kind of overcome, especially against a team like the Dolphins. Except for the fact that the Dolphins are facing an even worse situation at offensive line. For the Cowboys first, I think if it's having to play Chuma Edoga, we've done that before. We've done it with pretty good success. I'm not thrilled. I would definitely prefer to have Tyron Smith, especially against Chubbs, and so I think that certainly gives me some concern. But I think you've seen some positive play there from Chuma Edoga, so that gives you some positive vibes. I think for Zach,
what stinks is that I think Udoga is playing better than TJ Bass is, but I also think Tyron has played better than what Zach Martin has this year. So if you're going to lose the two, I'm not sure if I had to pick one to play, I probably would pick Tyron, but it's not a great situation either way.
No, I mean, certainly you prefer to have both of those guys in that game. Absolutely. And I don't disagree. I mean, I think Tyron's been fantastic so far this year. So I think that, I think the Cowboys have ways to overcome one of these injuries, right? But I think when you stretch it to two, you're covering up a lot of different stuff, even if they're on opposite sides and all that. I just think it's a lot to ask to kind of overcome the loss of two of those guys, right? On the other side, it's for the Dolphins, it may be worse. As bad as we complain about it, give me a little update on what the Dolphins line looks like, as of right now.
Yeah. So actually, I was listening to Mike McDaniel's press conference before today, and he said that Robert Hunt, their right guard, is out. So that means that Robert Jones is going to be playing at that side. And I believe the last time I checked, I'll double check really quickly, that Robert Jones was the lowest graded offensive lineman in the league coming into this week.
Yeah, Robert Hunt's the good one. Robert
Yes.
Jones is the not great Bob, as it were.
Yeah, okay. So Robert Jones this year, he has a overall PFF grade of 55.7, 39 pass blocking one. He's the lowest rated offensive guard in the league. Liam Eichenberg is their backup center. Connor Williams is out. Liam Eichenberg is rated as the 36th center in the NFL out of 37. He's also been limited the last 3 days of practice with a calf injury, not 100%. And then their left guard, Lester Cotton, PFF grade of 50.2, 60th guard in the NFL. Last one, Austin Jackson, their right tackle. He's been dealing with an oblique injury. He did not practice the last 3 days, although he didn't practice a lot last week either, and he played. He seems like he's the one where the status is still up in the air a little bit.
But it's also remind everyone that since Tua is a left-handed quarterback, that's their blindside tackle that we're talking about. So even if he plays, he's dealing with an oblique injury, which is, not fun when you're trying to push around big bodies. So.
I will mention that their backup, Kendall Lamb, who's played a lot this year because Teron Armstead has been out, has actually been a really good pass protector. Now, he struggled in the run. He's actually a pretty below average run blocker. So you probably won't lose a lot as a pass protector if Jackson doesn't play, but you do lose a little bit as a run blocker.
So it's, listen to all that, guys. I mean, there's a possibility that the Dolphins are playing with only one, maybe two starters of their offensive line this week. So both of these teams are going to have a very uphill task against what are very good defensive lines for either one of these two teams.
We already know for a fact that all three of their starting offensive linemen, at least going into the season, their interior offensive linemen are out. We already know that. And they've had a chance to have 4 of the 5 out this week as well.
Yeah, it's so it could be tough sledding kind of in protection. In run game, I think it's all going to be kind of interesting to see exactly what the balance of all that is. Like where the deficiencies show up on the offensive line the strongest. Are they going to be able to pass protect better than they're going to be able to run block? That's something that's going to be an interesting note. And I certainly think, considering all the hand wringing and the concern about run defense the Cowboys had this week, that it certainly bodes well for the Cowboys' ability to at least hopefully kind of, break up the schemes at the line of scrimmage, maybe to at least get some better victories against some of this lesser talent, find ways to kind of get into the backfield and disrupt things. And it'll be interesting to see exactly how all that plays out, to be honest.
One more thing on the Cowboys offensive line. I'm just confused on what happened to Tyron, because he played the whole game at left tackle, and then all of a sudden he's not practicing. We know what happened with Zach Martin. He got a knee to the thigh. Yeah, those suck. Yeah. Like those take a while to get healthy. But the fact that we had Mike McCarthy this morning say that Zach Martin is ahead of Tyron just makes me wonder, like, is it like a structural issue? Is it a muscle thing? Is he having back spasms again? Like I'm just confused.
It is a back. I mean, that's what they've said. So, who knows if it's like truly an injury or, like you said, spasms, or a situation where he felt abnormal tightness after coming out of the game that he wasn't used to, and they're just being abnormally precautious about it. With backs, it's tough. And they've done a really, really good job of kind of alleviating Tyron's issues by limiting his practice reps, or being very, strategic with how they're practicing him. My hope is that it's a situation where he has some tightness that they're hoping that will kind of loosen up before Sunday, and that he's able to play. But yeah, I mean, they're not giving us a lot of information.
Nope.
It's Tyron, it's a back, so it's not, it could be anything. It could be minor, it could be major. Who knows? But the fact is that they're not calling it something that, they plan on. He's not been ruled out.
No.
So it's not like, detrimental injury, but is it something that we need to worry about for the rest of the season? Is it something that he's going to hopefully miss a week and be okay? Is it something that's just going to go away in a day or two and he'll be fine to play the game? We have no idea at this point.
I just always remember the great quote from Eric Stoner. Nobody used to have a bad back. Like, if you have a bad back injury, you're going to have it for the rest of your life. I've got a feeling that Tyron, this is something that he'll just always have to deal with for the rest of his career. All right. I want to move on to Tyreek Hill and how the Cowboys can possibly try to slow him down. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Did the game go to timeout? Time to order in with DoorDash. Is it halftime? That is ordering in time. 2-minute warning. You got it. That is your cue to order in. Whenever the game clock stops, it's time to order in with DoorDash. There's absolutely no reason to root for your favorite team on an empty stomach. Order on DoorDash and save on all of your football watch party favorites. Order pizza, wings, sodas, burgers, or even just buns on DoorDash and get it all delivered without missing the game. I know my sister's coming into town tonight. We're going to watch some Christmas movies. We're going to plant our butts on the couch and DoorDash and watch as many Christmas movies as possible. I can't wait. Right now, you can get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter promo code LOCK23, subject to change, terms apply. Again, that is 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter promo code LOCK23, subject to change, terms apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We wanted to let you know that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, Landon, let's talk about Tyreek Hill. So he is going to play in this game. Mike McDaniel confirmed that on Friday. Now, we don't know how healthy he is, but it's Tyreek. I expect him to be incredibly fast regardless. How do you anticipate the Cowboys trying to slow him down?
I don't think he'll be healthy. I mean, I think that's clear. I mean, he had a pretty serious from what it looked like, high ankle sprain.
He's still going to be fast. I've got no doubt about that.
No, absolutely. Let me be clear. I don't know that it's going to have any effect on his straight line speed, period. But I do think it will have an effect. And I think that's what we need to focus on, right? I think it's going to make him a little bit less able to kind of be squirrely to kind of get in and out of his breaks. I think the yak element is where I think you should try to take advantage here. Normally with Tyreek, what's so difficult about him is that you could send him deep. He'll beat your guy at straight line speed if you even line up close to him or try to play him like that. He'll beat you down the field, and the Cowboys should not try to do that. They should try to play shell coverage, keep it all in front of him, because I do think normally what happens then is if everyone keeps shell coverage, they throw it to him short, and he uses his speed and elusiveness to create big plays anyways, right? Because he's just that good. I think that there's going to be a certain amount of diminished returns with this injury on that aspect specifically. His ability to kind of weave around defenders, get in and out of his breaks quickly, the stuff that is required to get open short versus what's required to get open deep, right? That's where, I mean, it may not be a huge downgrade, but it's enough that's where the Cowboys should try to focus if they're going to make Tyreek Hill beat them, make him beat them by getting the ball short and then trying to elude tackles and break tackles that way. I also think that's just the best way to probably play the Dolphins, right? Is to kind of keep it all in front of them, Cowboys wise, and just rally to make tackle. I think that's how the Cowboys want to win these kind of games anyways. They're normally a very good tackling team, last week notwithstanding. But I think that if you're going to face Tyreek Hill, and this Dolphins offense in general, they live and die by the big play. If you can prevent the big play, and that's obviously a bit easier said than done against the number one ranked offense in the league. If you can find a way to limit the big play and force Tua to kind of nickel and dime down the field and just keep it all in front of you, it's more difficult for them to kind of consistently get first downs that way. This is the truth against all offenses, but especially this offense that is really, really just wants to get the big play, is doing everything it can to generate big plays. The Cowboys can find a way to prevent that and make them march the length of the field. I think there's opportunities to get after Tua, make him get to his second read, make him hit him, force him. He doesn't do well under pressure. There are going to be opportunities that the Cowboys can just find a way to stop Tyreek from getting 40, 50-yard bombs down the field and make him catch it short and try to run through the Dallas defense.
Landon, the one thing that I think the Cowboys can do to really slow down Tyreek is just get a pass rush, right? Like Tua is not the type of quarterback that's going to get outside the pocket and extend plays that way and find Tyreek Hill 30 to 40 yards down the field. If you can create a pass rush, especially up the middle, I mean, Tua's barely 6 foot. He does not have, I mean, he's not tall, right? So create a quick pass rush and then just make those throwing lanes tighter. Whether you're dropping back guys into zones to make him have to think about who's, in those kind of areas. I just think that's the way to beat Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins in this game, is create pressure with your front four and your front five.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big things to stopping Tua is not only getting pressure under him, because he doesn't do well under pressure. I mean, that's really the big thing that separates Dak and Tua. Is Dak is a very good quarterback throwing the football under pressure. Tua is not, and I think the key thing here is to force Tua off his first read. Right, get Tua to have to read the whole defense. He kind of tends to panic. He tends to kind of get his feet work sloppy. And I think that's going to be the way that you are going to kind of get him off his game a little bit. The other thing too about Tua is that he will fumble the ball. Like he's got a real issue. I think if I'm not mistaken, the Miami Dolphins have not had 2 games in a row where that offense has turned the ball over. Has not turned the ball over. Yeah. They've turned the ball over pretty consistently throughout the season. They didn't last week, so I think they're due again this week. But I think that the key thing is having a plan for Tyreek, making Tua, hesitate to throw into his first read, and then, collapsing the pocket around him. Again, like we said, with the offensive line, it's all beat up. They may have to do some kind of interesting stuff, whether that's stunting folks, using the sim pressure stuff that I talked about earlier in the week, but they got to find a way to attack the middle of that pocket, because I think that's where they're going to have, it's 2 things. It's immediate success because of the matchups, and obviously it's a body in their face right away, which is going to be concerning for a guy who is kind of shorter, can't see over the line of scrimmage like that. Now,
I do want to give Tua some credit. I think he's pretty good at like moving around in the pocket to create throwing lanes. But what he's not going to do is bail out of a pocket and then give himself like another window. I actually think Brock Purdy is better at doing that than what Tua is, but I think Tua is better at moving around the pocket, so like edge pressure doesn't bother him. So that's the thing, is if you can keep him contained in the pocket, or if you can force him outside of the pocket, that's when you could probably have a lot of success against this offense.
I think it's really when his eyes don't know where to go, right? Because he is very good against the blitz, which is interesting, right? Like, so if you blitz him, he knows the answers, he knows where to go, he knows how to really exploit you and really, really make it hurt. But if you send 4 or 5 and you have coverage behind it, that's where I think he has problems, right? Is when he knows the pressure is coming and he doesn't have an option, or he doesn't like his options. That's where you're going to put him in an uncomfortable situation.
100% agree. I'm fascinated to see, first of all, the strategy the Cowboys use to try to stop Tyreek Hill. And I also want to see just the response. Like, is the effort level better than it was last week? Is the tackling better? When Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle get to the open field, do they have players rallying to the football? I think we're going to learn a lot about what this defense can do this week, just based on their effort level. Later, let's make some predictions for this Christmas Eve game between the Cowboys and the Dolphins. We will do that next. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS, because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, all you have to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is the most fun that I've had playing DFS, because there's so many different players. It's so many different stats to choose from. It's absolutely fantastic. Plus, PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return for the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform in North America with an injury insurance policy. It's absolutely brilliant. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Everydayers. On Monday, we're actually going to have a special show for you. That will not be our recap show. Our recap show will be aired on Tuesday, the 26th. So make sure you tune in for that. But again, special show on Monday. You guys are going to love that. Landon, let's do our predictions for this one. I got to believe that you think this is going to be a close game.
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely. Like, look, the kind of parallels between these two teams is really kind of shocking, right? It's in a lot of ways. It's felt like in previous seasons that the LA Chargers were the Dallas Cowboys of the AFC.
Yeah.
But this year it really does feel like it's the Dolphins and powerful offenses, defenses that have really come around. And just kind of a lot of the same stigma put around them, right? Both teams that haven't really proven that they can win against tough teams or don't have at least great records, at least in the national media's tracking of this.
And by the way, did you see the Cowboys got another win against a winning record team yesterday?
That's right. Yes, that back end. I love when the back end plays like that, right? Suddenly you get another winning record team added to your tally. It's great. And hey, that helps with tiebreakers eventually. I do think that this is a game for trend breaking, right? You know, the one of these teams is going to have to win. One of these teams is going to have to find a way to kind of break through and go against the kind of narrative against these two teams. And I think for the Cowboys to kind of break the spell and break the trend that they have of how struggling on the road against good teams, I think I'm going to have to break a trend. And so I'm going to try something a little different this week. I'm picking the Dolphins to win. I think this is a tough game for the Cowboys. Like, again, just like Dolphins last week, this is an even more motivated team with an even more talented offense. I think that the Cowboys probably have cleaned things up enough to figure out a way to win this game. And I think that if the offense can figure out a way to be efficient and score points early, they can certainly be in this game and get into a game script that will benefit them greatly. But I just think it's a tough thing to do in Miami and on the road against, again, a Miami team that, you know, needs every single one of these wins to get where they want to go in the playoffs. So I'm going to pick the Dolphins to win, unfortunately, 28-24.
All right, so I've got two different thoughts on how this game could go, and I want you to tell me which one you think is more likely. So, number one, and we talked about this earlier in the week, motivation does matter a lot in these late season games. And we talked about for the Cowboys, Dallas already has the number 5 seed clinched. They don't really need this game in order to win the NFC East. What they need to do is win 2 out of the last 3. And they need the Eagles to lose 1 of their last 3, regardless of who it is. So the Cowboys could slip up this week, and the Eagles could lose to the Giants, and the Cowboys could be in a much better situation than they were going into the week. So that's always in my I always try to factor that. Where Miami wins their final 3, they're the number 1 seed. They win their final 2, they are the AFC East champion. They win 1 of their last 3, they're a wild card team. They lose all 3 games, they are out of the playoffs. It just means a lot more for Miami.
Yeah.
I've also seen, Landon, just kind of like looking back at history, the road teams typically do very well on Christmas Eve. And my working theory is that when you're home and you're playing, like you're just trying to get the game done as fast as possible so you can go home and spend Christmas Eve with your family and your friends. Where when you're the road team, like, you know, you're not going to be spending Christmas Eve with your family. You know that you're not going to be getting home until really late when the kids are in bed. And we saw, I'm trying to think of the year, but when Jeff Garcia and the Eagles came in and destroyed the Cowboys on Christmas Eve, was that 2008?
It had to be, yeah. That sounds right. 2008.
I do think the road teams have an advantage when you play some of these holiday games. So I think it's going to be close. I'm gonna lean with you. I'm gonna take the Dolphins, but I think this is going to be a very competitive game.
Yeah, I certainly think that. I mean, I think the line right now is Dolphins -1 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's and again, I think there's a lot of parallels between these two teams. I honestly think this is truly one of those games where it all depends on how the script lays out, right?
Yeah.
How does the ball bounce in this game, and how do things react from there? So I think the Cowboys certainly have a chance, and if they do, it would be an enormous win. But I think you're right that if they lose, they just need to win those last two of these last three.
And they just match up so much better against Detroit at home,
Yeah, especially with Hankins back and potentially Tyron's. But by the way, it just got announced right now. Tyron did not practice in the walkthrough today on the Friday walkthrough. Zach Martin did. So it may be Martin looks good. We'll see about Tyron. So all those things still apply.
Yeah. Plus Jimmy Johnson inducted into the Ring of Honor next week. They're just not losing that game. I'm just telling you right now.
No way.
So that's why the Cowboys can lose this game as long as they get out healthy. They might be in the same or better shape, just depending on what happens with Philadelphia this weekend. That is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Go check out our channel on YouTube. We post videos every single day over there. Go check out the podcast. We are free and available on all platforms. Go follow Landon on Twitter at BCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. Enjoy the game. Enjoy the holidays. Have a great time with your families, and we will see you right back here on Tuesday.